What's the good word, y'all? DKB here. So, feeling a lot better. I've had things to calm down, kind of continue to put some things in perspective. I got to hear a lot of other content creators and kind of their thoughts about the game, where Zach Wilson is at, what the coaching staff should do, etc. And, irregardless, I guess for starters, we did get some pretty amazing news depending on what your thoughts are about Zach Wilson. Robert Saleh's press conference today, he confirmed that it is not a guarantee that Zach Wilson starts. They are looking at all of the things. Coaching staff, he did say he's not taking a look at, changing play calling duties. But quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, they're going to see what things they need to shift, what needs to change, who may need to be in those starting units to best produce an effective offense. We realistically need very little, as this week showed us, for this New York Jets team to win. I would, I'll stand on the table and gladly say this looks like a Super Bowl caliber defense. If anything, we have some leaky situations as we've seen. Damian Harris was able to, stack some big plays on us up the middle in terms of the run game, but that's not anything that's going to move the needle an extreme amount. And we bounce back pretty quickly in game as adjustments are made, at least on the defensive side. So I'm happy with that news. Whether Zach Wilson does ultimately end up starting against the Bears again, or if we go a different route, there will be a video on that coming soon as well. We'll see. But the news here is that there's two potential replacements when we want to talk about long term to extend this window and capitalize on the current window that we actually have. We have a roster that's much further ahead than expected. Again, Super Bowl caliber defense. When you look at the pieces we have on offense, you have to be excited, assuming you have I don't want to say intelligent quarterback, but assuming you have a average at worst quarterback. I mean, again, we needed very little production from the Patriots in order to secure that win. And we probably could have done it by leaps and bounds if Zach Wilson just made some of these throws that he should have made. I mean, one of the ones that really struck me that I've been seeing highlights of over and over and over is the miss to Denzel Mims going over the middle. And you've seen Zach Wilson looking at him for at least a half a second, maybe a second and a half at most. And then he takes off for a 6-yard scramble. So, that something's not clicking there, whether it's him being scared to commit turnovers and seeing what the media does with that, or the fact that he really is just not getting it, it's concerning. So replacements we have, and I found it interesting because I love X Factor. I love most of the guys that I see from there, and I only say most because I'm not familiar with everybody. They got a guy named Vivek that I've been seeing doing more film breakdown, enjoying him. So, as I get used to the staff, it is what it is. But Derek Carr and Jimmy Garopollo are the names that are thrown out there. And I think Jimmy G would have been a name that everybody would have expected to, come up once this offseason gets underway, just because we have the connections across the coaching staff. It would be one of the most, I don't want to take it there because we've seen this with Lake and Thomas and it didn't work out in our favor, but it should be one of the most seamless transitions that you could possibly ask for. Same coaching schematic, player that's very familiar. He gives you all the foundational skills that you're looking for as a game manager. So we'll dive into that in a little bit, but Derek Carr is the more interesting name to me, and he potentially can be ousted out of Las Vegas with the Raiders. And we've been seeing this potentially coming for a while. Somehow he's been able to survive a couple of these coaching staffs, but his name always comes back as maybe a guy that just can't get them over the hump. And, you have to feel for him a little bit. His situation has been terrible. He had a lack of weapons at one point. Then he had a strong run game, but his defense, couldn't stop anything whatsoever. Run games were going crazy. Pass games were going crazy. Special teams would fail them. You'd see these huge plays like the Jets just gave up. And so, he had to shoulder a lot of that. And that's one of the things that I would greatly appreciate coming off of some of these comments, which I'm starting to feel like we're overblowing to a certain degree a little bit. But, there's guys that you know are never going to let the rest of their team take the brunt of the fall. Whatever happens is going to be kept in house. But out there on the podium, they're going to fess up to all the issues and take that ownership. Now, when we want to go ahead and take a look at what this guy is going to offer and kind of what this could entail, keep in mind this is going to be a trade situation, right? The Raiders are still retaining his rights, I think, until the end of the 2025 season. But there's no way I even see them sticking around with the full length of that contract. And there's a few reasons why. Also, the ball would be in Derek Carr's court. Granted, this is a great situation that the Robert Saleh can still sell any quarterback, assuming they do make this move, and that Derek Carr has a full no trade clause with his contract. So he has the Deshaun Watson ace up his sleeve. He can do as he pleases in terms of choosing his team. We're talking about a guy in his ninth season. 59-77 record, so it's not great. Ideally, I would want to see us bring in a guy that we know for a fact can go out there and win in a lot of harsh situations, but he has shown this on film. He's had a propensity to outperform expectations to a certain degree, but with the enormous underwhelming drafts that have been coming in, players underperforming, etc., poor defenses, it's just too much for, the one man. So this would be a welcome situation for him. Now, contractually, again, full no trade clause. He just got the 3-year, $121 million extension in the offseason, so they can, try to make a little bit of room, give a little bit of false security, I would say, when you take a look at how things are structured and why I think he can be ousted. And then they ended up only fully guaranteeing his base salary, which was $17.4 million, and the signing bonus, which was $7.5 million, fully guaranteed. Now, for the rest of his contract, it gets very crazy. So even next year, which would be when we would look to make this trade, he would make $32.9 million in base salary. We're talking in the realms of Lamar Jackson money on a contract extension, assuming he can make it happen this offseason. We're talking Patrick Mahomes not being too far off. And so I don't know if the route we want to go is to reset our entire record, reset our cap in order to try to fit this guy in, because I don't see us restructuring or doing anything crazy with it. And then it even balloons further up to $41.9 million, I think it was, the year after. And then, in 2025 is essentially the same. So that is an extreme amount of money to bring in for a guy that I wouldn't say would obviously make us a Super Bowl or fail kind of season for us. I don't even think Jimmy Garoppolo would do that. But I mean, Derek Carr's services would definitely guarantee us a playoff spot, and we'll see, how quick he can acquiesce himself to this offense and get this thing off the ground. But again, elite defense, it will require very little, and it's hard to fathom somebody not being able to produce more than about 25 yards per quarter with this offense that we have in place. Now, trade compensation wise is probably looking like a second round pick from what I've seen, potentially maybe something else to help sweeten the pot. So maybe a second and a fifth, something like that. We'll see if his value stays that high. But we're talking about a guy that has been superb in terms of being a playmaker. 208 touchdowns, only 90 interceptions. He's above the 2-to-1 ratio mark, and then a 64.8% completion percentage. Look, I will sign up myself if I could for a veteran's minimum contract. I think even I can produce at least a 40% completion rate, which is not too far off from the general average of Zach Wilson's career. So, I mean, I think this would be a no-brainer in a lot of situations, at least if the contract would make a lot of sense. There's a lot that we're bringing on with having to trade for Derek Carr. But the alternative, much cheaper option, potentially a lot safer, just not as exciting, would be Jimmy Garoppolo. Also going into his ninth season, he has a 48-20 career record. This is a guy who has shown that he can win. The issue being is that he's never shown he can elevate the players around him. He definitely plays to the talent he has available. So there would be concerns about him being able to develop this wide receiver room, etc. Not purely on him, but still something that maybe we want to be concerned about. But again, I will take a winner 7 days out the week. So we're talking about one of the most effective game managers. We're talking about a low salary. He only got 6.5 million this year with a 1.5 million dollar signing bonus. He did have a huge contract that 49ers gave to him before, but again, that was coming off a very promising brief stint with the Patriots, where it looked like maybe he could be one of those next great quarterbacks of this generation. Not quite up to them helms, but needless to say, he would be a huge upgrade over what we have right now. And just knowing that the consistency and the understanding of the offense, etc., would be there. So, I mean, I would probably frankly say that he could potentially even average, 2, 3 touchdowns a game in an offense like this when we go back and see all of the missed opportunities we already have on film. And the fact that these guys would only get a lot better. He'd have a dominant stud in Breece Hall that's coming back. We'll revamp this offensive line again in order to give him the most success possible. But he also has an interesting situation. So he has a no tag clause for 2023, essentially meaning that he's free to do as he pleases. He doesn't have to worry about the 49ers trying to lock him down for future years. So this is kind of the easiest situation we can all see happening over the course of the offseason. Lower contract, the guy's a winner. He's exactly what Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur would be used to. It's a seamless integration into this offense. And he's going to bring with him 86 touchdowns to 42 interceptions and a 67.6% completion percentage. So the guy's highly effective, highly efficient. He's consistent. You know everything that you're getting. Just in a higher overall thinking of things, my brain just tells me Jimmy Garoppolo, make this as easy as a decision for the coaching staff as possible. This gives Zach Wilson a guy that he can at least take a few decent things from. Jimmy Garoppolo, more of your classic pocket passer, right? But he is a guy that has been known when necessary to use his feet to take off. Zach Wilson almost seems allergic to seeing open green for grass in front of him and picking up positive yardage at this point. So he can kind of take some of the finer nuances out of his game. Think a little bit more of maybe like a Joe Flacco with less arm talent, right? So he's just going to stand in the pocket. He's going to deliver strikes. He'll help Zach Wilson understand where his eyes should be trained to, going through his progressions. One of the best things that will come about this as well is we don't have to severely dumb down our playbook and things that we want to do schematically just in order to try to produce first downs, positive yardage, momentum builders, confidence boosters, etc. We can go out there and not have to run a one read or chuck it offense, having to run 2 out of 3 plays, run on first and second down consistently and then try to, complete a third and long. Those days would effectively be over for us, assuming everything falls in place. So that's where I'm at with it, guys. I think I've hit the stage of acceptance in this grieving period where I understand what Zach Wilson is at this point in time. I hope for the best with what he could become after another offseason, a healthy preseason. Maybe he fights for his life and proves why he's was a number 2 overall pick. But at this point, we can't put all our eggs in the basket with Zach Wilson anymore. I was never one to believe that he should have been handed the keys to the Ferrari anyways. A very raw individual coming out, was never healthy. One breakout season is great, but we've seen a lot of guys with more consistent production fall to pieces in the NFL early on, learning bad habits, confidence shot. One of the more interesting things to me as well is I think we're finally seeing this New York Jets media wear down on Zach Wilson, and he just looks like he's ready to be on the defensive coming out of every post-game press conference. So, and that's even considering the wins, because they were going at him for not being a more significant part of why we're winning, and instead the defense and special teams and the running game being kind of what has boosted things for us. So, Either way, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. If it really came down between these two players, would you take the Derek Carr trade, or would you settle for Jimmy Garoppolo? And either way, we feel like we will be a playoff team with Super Bowl aspirations as legitimate contenders. Let me know in the comments, and I'll check you guys again. Peace.